Um, Thank you for being here. And I failed to mention two things in the intro out of nervousness. So I was saying, like, we've been doing these screenings for 15 years, season 16. This is like the soft opening, and then our official season 16 kickoff for Real Black is next Friday. We have another filmmaker coming to Philly from by way of New York, Eden Marichaux, for a movie called Bruce, which won at American Black Film Festival and Martha's Vineyard. So, and that's a Pay What You Wish, 3750 Lancaster Avenue. And then also, DVDs are for sale. I always forget the second thing. I just want to give, the second thing is I don't want to say anything because I think I think we all have a perspective on the film, and hopefully we can bring it together along with the energy of all those spirits, those unnamed people that we know who started the coup. We don't really have the names of the people that were victimized by it, but I feel a lot of that energy in the film. And I have to thank Chris again. I think 2 years ago, maybe 3, we connected on social media, and he told me about the film, and I watched it, and I just want everything to be right, and not just like have it at the museum be right, but just make sure Chris could be here, be right, but also, I could not have imagined that we would be screening this movie as part of the opening of the Cotton exhibit here at the African American Museum, and on the eve of these most important midterm elections. So, and that Michael Coard would be here, who is one of our brightest lawyers, not only a lawyer, but an activist, founder of the Avenging the Ancestors Coalition, which has done so much, and concurrently writes for the Philadelphia Tribune. You have to read his articles. You have to follow him on Instagram and Facebook. And even, like, I know a lot of people, apathy is the rule of the day. A lot of people go into those voting booths not knowing who to choose. Michael, right on the eve of every election, offers his picks. So, I would like to please come to the stage. And then Christopher Everett, who is our director, Wilmington on Fire.
Yeah, you take that. Testing. First of all, thank you all for coming. Let's give Mike a big round of applause for helping to put this together. And I'm going to turn this over to Chris because he's the brains behind all this. But I just want to start by asking everybody for like 60 seconds, just like meditate and chill, because as I was standing there and sitting there, I was so enraged. I mean, I actually said this to myself: it's a good thing that I have loved ones who care about me. It's a good thing that I haven't been diagnosed with some deadly disease that gives me only, say, 7 days to live. Because if I was, I'd do something crazy. I mean, I certainly would do something crazy. So let's just spend 60 seconds just thinking about what could be done. And if you're like me, you don't know what could be done, but you can meditate for 60 seconds and maybe the ancestors will tell you something that you weren't thinking about. So let's start 60-second complete silence right now. Thirty seconds. Forty seconds. 50 seconds. 60 seconds. Again, because we have this great man in our presence, I'm going to let him do most of the talking, but one of the things that Mike said is that I'm a part of a group called ATTAC, A-T-A-C, Avenging the Ancestors Coalition. And people confuse avenge with revenge. They're completely two different things. Revenge means I'll do the same bad thing to you that you did to me. Avenge means to make things right. Don't get me wrong now, sometimes I'm in that revenge mode, but talk to me privately about that, but publicly, I'm into the avenge thing. Having said that, what we'll do is have some comments made by Chris, and then we'll spend, I believe, 25, 30 minutes just hearing questions and comments from you all. And in terms of questions and comments, we know everybody here has a PhD in African history. So please don't spend 17 minutes giving us a dissertation before you ask your question or make your statement. Please, we got like a 10-second limit. Just get it in and get it out. Dr. Jones, Dr. Smith, and Dr. whoever else is here. Having said that, let's first give Chris a big round of applause, and we'll turn the microphone over to him.
I just want to.
Try this one.
I just want to, thank everyone for, coming out tonight. This is my first time in Philly. Coming here and having this experience has been real cool. So this film was a hard, long road. It took about 4.5, 5 years to make, a lot of sacrifice. I was actually living in Atlanta during the time when I came up with the concept, and I got laid off from my job. So I decided that I always had an interest in making films. So right when I lost my job, I said, you know what? I want to do this full time. I want to really go for my dream and really tell this story as well. So I convinced my grandparents to let me move back to a little small town called Laurinburg, North Carolina. And so I pretty much stayed with them for rent-free for 4 years. And they didn't really understand what I was doing, but I pretty much put all my money into this project, and were able to meet all these great people, these great historians and activists and authors of, and researchers of this topic. And it was just a wealth of knowledge. It was like going to college, every day for free. You know what I'm saying? Because Sandy Darity, he's one of the top professors at Duke University, and just having access to people like him and others, it was just like, wow, I wish I really had an education like that coming up, with teachers like that around me. So everyone involved in the project really enjoyed it. We all pretty much worked for cheap. So we really wanted to get this thing made and really get this story out there, because not only important to North Carolina history, but American history as well.
And again, we're going testing. I'm not sure if this mic is working, but is it? You can hear me? What I want to do at this point is just to ask him a few questions, and then we'll get to you. So I guess my first question is, this was like an hour and a half long. I'm sure there was a lot on the cutting floor.
Yeah.
Are there any key statements or points that you had that you just couldn't fit into this hour and a half that you think is important to share with the audience?
Oh, it was a lot. I think the original cut was about 6 hours. And I was like, nah, I can't, can't do that. So it was a struggle just to get it to the 90-minute mark. I was really trying to cut it down even more, but I felt like if I would have cut it down even more, just the story just would have been lost. So it was a lot, and we're also actually, we start the follow-up to this as well. We're doing a part 2 to this, because like you were saying, it was still so much that we wanted to talk about. Like, for example, Alex Manley, who you all saw in the film, the guy whose newspaper building was burned down, he actually relocated to Philadelphia after Wilmington.
Is that right?
Yeah, so we're going to actually, we found some more of his descendants, and they're actually going to come to Philly and go to his old house and talk about his life afterwards in Philly. So we'll be doing some filming here in Philadelphia, because the story kept going. What happened to these people after the 1898 massacre, how were their lives changed. So those are the things that we didn't get to include, like the city of Whitesboro, New Jersey. It was a town started as like a new start, a safe haven for the people of the 1898 massacre. So we actually had a part in the film but it was just like 5 minutes, and I said, nah, this needs more. You know, people need to see this. So that's one of the reasons why we're actually going to do a follow-up, because all the stuff we had to cut out. And I felt like it's still important to the story that people need to know about.
Excellent. And while you all pause, we're going to take a selfie up here. Here we go. All right, let's go with the audience. Questions, comments, and please be mindful of the time. I guess what we'll do, Mike will call you up, or is there a microphone circulating, or do people need to come up? All right, what will...
I really enjoyed the film. I got family from that area. How can we find out more about how you're going to spread this story? Because I'm interested in letting more people know about it and how they can access it and find out and view it and support your work.
Just go to WilmingtonOnFire.com. WilmingtonOnFire.com. Everything's on there. Contact information, ways you can get the film. If you want to set up a screening, my contact info is on there. WilmingtonOnFire.com, or just hit me up after the Q&A and we'll talk. But WilmingtonOnFire.com, just let people know about the film, where they can get it, and just keep spreading the word about it.
Okay, yes, good evening. Yes, my question is, yes, when seeing this film about what happened in Wilmington, North Carolina, and of course we know about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood. How many more cases like this do you think are out there that we don't know about? That
Man, it's probably it's thousands. It's almost every year somebody's either coming out with a new film or a book about, you know, something that they kind of uncovered, some type of racial massacre. And even you see on the internet where somebody is putting out a new article, whether it's on the New York Times or something about a racial, you know, massacre or racial cleansing that's happened in a city, you know, over 100 years ago. So I think, you know, each year we're finding out more and more, you know what I'm saying? And I was just lucky enough just to have the initiative to actually, you know, do this. You know, being from North Carolina and being so close to Wilmington, I'm from Laurinburg. It's about an hour and a half from Wilmington. But I used to go up there a lot because my uncle, he used to work there. So as a family, we would go there on the weekends. And even when I showed him the film, he lived there for like 20 years in Wilmington. He knew nothing about it. And there was a lot of people there that they heard certain things, but it was more like, you know, just some, you know, on the porch type of talk about certain things. They didn't really know the in-depths of it. And just like you saw in the film, the lady was saying that, you know, people never really talked about it. And I know one screening we had in North Carolina, it was an older gentleman. I think he was about 90-something years old. And I think his great-grandparents, they were banished during the massacre. And he said that his parents would always tell him, you know, you don't talk about that stuff in the house. So it's crazy, man, like how that, I think that's why a lot of this stuff has been hidden over the years. We just didn't talk about it. And even with Alex Manley's grandson, who we have in the film, Dr. Lewin Manley, he didn't really find out about his family history till he got older, till he was about 50. You know, he knew that his grandfather had a newspaper in Wilmington, but his parents and his grandmother always said that they just moved to Philadelphia. And they just made it seem like his business just closed down. And he just kind of got out of the business. They never really told him why they actually moved to Philly, you know.
I thought it was very, I have a loud mouth, right, so everybody can hear me. I was very interested to see in the credits that one of your locations was Whitesboro, New Jersey. I actually lived in Whitesboro as a teenager, and of course you know the history of that town. It's called Whitesboro. It's named after George White, who was a congressman during Reconstruction. He and Booker T. Washington purchased this town specifically for African Americans to live. I didn't recognize anything. So where was the Whitesboro location where you shot, and why did you shoot there?
it was just going back to remember what you said about the stuff I had to cut out. That was one of the parts. We actually did some filming in Whitesboro to talk about George White. And, you know, after he didn't get reelected because of the Jim Crow laws in North Carolina, you know, he started urging African Americans in North Carolina to move up to the new spot he had got, and especially people from Wilmington. So we actually did some filming, but it was just hard to put it in, you know, with all the other stuff. So that's why we're actually doing the follow-up. We're actually going to start filming in Whitesboro soon, because I felt like it needed a bigger part. You know, we could only squeeze about 5 minutes in there, and I was like, nah, it needs to, you know, have more. So it's coming. You know, we're going to have Whitesboro in this. It definitely plays a key part in this history.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I want to congratulate you on this fine work. I appreciate it. My question is, what are your goals for distribution? Do you have like set goals? Because this is worthy to be shown and screened at Sundance.
Well, now it's too late for Sundance. You know, they have, you know, I actually work at a film festival as well. And a lot of these film festivals, they're real, you know, strict. They have certain, you know, guidelines and stuff where they have certain premiere statuses and has to be a certain age. But I actually have turned my film company into like a semi-distribution company. Not only do we distribute Wilmington on Fire ourselves, we handle distribution for like several other titles as well. A short film called Whiteface that has been on the festival circuit for a few years. And also we're bringing out an underground cult film called As an Act of Protest. We actually have a screening of it in Brooklyn, New York next weekend. So this film not only helped me, you know, put out this history and this story to the public, it also helped me expand my own passion and actually found out what I'm actually good at. You know what I'm saying? Of actually making films, marketing films, and doing my own distribution. So we pretty much do our own distribution. You can get a DVD in the back table back there. You can also go on WilmingtonOnFire.com and order it digital download online as well. So we pretty much are just doing our own distribution model right now. And I also do that for several other filmmakers as well.
Chris actually said this is something he's good at. He's very modest. He's great at it. And one of the things I wanted to say about him is that when we watched this film, everybody wanted some reparations, some type. He is the personification of that. He's the first step toward it in terms of making this film. So as depressing as it might seem, it's not as bad as it seems. We can do something, and he's a testament to that. One other quick point I want to make, since everybody's asking him the questions and not asking me anything, I just want to throw out something. You constantly heard about how the Democrats did this, and I just want to be clear that the Democrats of today and the Democrats then are two completely different parties. I post a lot of stuff about slavery on my Facebook page, and all the Trumpsters and Republicans say, well, you know the Democrats did this, and you know the Democrats did that. So I just want to be clear, don't be fooled by it. In fact, the Democratic Party in 1948, I believe Harry S. Truman talked about desegregating the military, talked about taking steps against Jim Crow, and out of that, many of the delegates left. And they created the Dixiecrats. And from that, they used Strom Thurmond as their leader. So that's the Republican Party of today. And I just wanted to be clear about that. Having said that, I'll shut up. I'm already sitting down.
We'll do, what, 3 more? This woman back here, and then I'll come over there. Is that okay?
Hi. That actually segues nicely into my question. The film sort of ended with this topic about reparations. What's the white reception in Wilmington, and how has that been?
Well, and this is something we're actually going to be filming for part 2, is that ever since the film has came out, we've done probably about 100 screenings over the past 3 years just in Wilmington alone. And the city has really embraced it, and a lot of people want to actually change. You're starting to have a lot of the white business leaders in the community. We actually did a big screening. One guy who reached out to me, he's one of the big business owners in Wilmington, a white guy. He's a tech owner. He owns several tech companies in Wilmington. You know, his family wasn't involved in the 1898 massacre, but he felt like he still benefits, just being a white business owner. So he's been starting an initiative of getting all the old money in Wilmington and all the new money in Wilmington, which is majority white, to come to the table and really start putting money in the black community, in forms of, business, grant opportunities and all that stuff, mentorship, the whole nine. That's just one initiative that is starting to happen because of the film. He said that, the film really, touched him and made him feel like he needed to do something more and really put his money where his mouth was. So he's really taking the initiative of doing things like that. And also what's really shocking, I don't know if people are lying, but a lot of the, any white person that comes to the screening over the past couple of years, after seeing the film, I've had a lot of them come up to me and said, yeah, after watching the film, you guys lay out the facts and the documentation that you can't deny reparations. I don't know if people are lying or not, but but I never really heard anything negative, which I thought it was going to be negative when we first started screening. I was like, man, people just going to just talk down about this. But in actuality, I've seen a lot of people actually agree. But that part has been cool. But I guess the next step is, how do we do it? And I think that's the conversation, or what we really need to have now is like, how do we do it, and how do we do it effectively?
This woman here.
Hi, good evening. I love the film. It was really gut-wrenching, and congratulations on your work. I have a question about the Red Shirt Militia, I think that is. Did your research come up with any further groups that have that kind of cycle of influence in Wilmington, and maybe perhaps in other work that you've done, since it didn't sound like it was disbanded legally or technically?
Well, I know after the red shirts, you started to have, in North Carolina especially, after the red shirts were kind of went under, you had the rise of the Ku Klux Klan mostly. After, I would say right after 1900, 1901, you started to see a more shift of the Ku Klux Klan throughout North Carolina. And a lot of those, and a lot of times people just want to restrict, the Wilmington Massacre just to Wilmington. Now, it was all over the state. This was really a statewide white supremacy movement, because a lot of those pictures of red shirts, you can only find those pictures of those ones that I have, and those pictures of those red shirts were in my hometown of Laurinburg. They were all over. I think my hometown actually had one of the heaviest red shirt populations in the state. And so they were all over the state. And it was just a big, big white supremacy movement all over. They just targeted Wilmington because that was the biggest place at the time. And it was the largest, African-American populated city at the time as well. So it was your major city, so they had to actually capture Wilmington to signal to the rest of the state that, white supremacy was just going to rule.
James here.
Sure. And Michael, maybe this is a question I could toss to you, and you both can weigh in. I'm wondering, I'm thinking about, here at the museum, we often kind of use films like this to shed light on contemporary subjects. And so being a resident of Point Breeze in South Philly and thinking about the seizure of black neighborhoods, I'm wondering how a narrative like this can shine light on redlining, gentrification, this way that that governments move black bodies still today, perhaps not as violently, but with equal impact.
I have an answer, but okay, he's going to throw it to me. I think that we need to be vigilant. We need to realize that it might not come like a bunch of red shirts with guns, but it might be three-piece suits with pens. Either way, it's a taking. So in the same way that the black folks then needed to, and I'm sure did try to protect one another, we need to do that today. So what we really need to do, and I think I'm one of the persons that should be doing it, any black person with a voice, whether it's radio or TV or newspaper, ought to be putting the call out, telling black people that if you own your home in the hood, keep your home in the hood, and explain to them why it's so important. You complain about the crime in your community, but the folks coming in are not concerned about the crime in the community. They want the property. So what we need are people like you to raise the issue to people like me, and we don't just answer the questions like I am now and saying, yeah, that's a good idea, and keep it moving. We need to exchange numbers. And whether you know it or not, you're going to be a guest on my radio show this Sunday. So we can talk about this and put the call out so we can organize something, because talk is cheap.
Wait, James, let's keep the same energy going. So like this week, we have the Kavanaugh, a lot of things are changing. You monitor this on a regular basis through your columns and things. Should we be in this, as much fear as, say, Dr. Umar puts us in this film? Like how far back are the laws being changed from what we're accustomed to?
Yeah, there's a classic line in the film which goes like this: be afraid, be very afraid. And I understand your point about how things are changing, but things are really not changing. One of the great points about, the only great point, good point about Donald Trump winning is that it revealed what America really is. Because Trump didn't elect himself, and even though Hillary got 3 million more votes, he still got nearly 65 million votes. That's America. And we need to be mindful of that, like the young man talked about with the other issue. So one of the things we really need to do, and I try to make this clear when I talk to black people, because I understand we got black Christians, we got black Muslims, we got black women, we got black men, we got black gay, we got black straight, we got black revolutionaries, we got black conservatives. The thing I always say is that we need to have unity without uniformity. And when I say unity without uniformity, it's almost like a football team. And we got somebody from Dallas, somebody from New York, somebody from Chicago, somebody from the Eagles, and we all on the same football team. We got different colored uniforms, but we're together now and trying to score that field goal, trying to score that touchdown, whatever. So I don't know what it's going to take in terms of us saying, and this is my strategy, and it's probably going to take about 2.5 hours. You got 2.5 hours here, so I'm going to cut it to less than 2 minutes. One of the things that we have to do as black people, to the extent we can, is to find out what is it that we agree upon. Now, if you put 100 issues in the bag, black people might disagree on 90 of those 100 issues. So we need to take those 90 and put them to the side and find those 10 issues that we really support. And then the black Muslims and the black Christians and the black gay and the black straight, we can all come together on that. But it takes some leadership. And people say, well, we don't have a Malcolm today and we don't have a Martin today. People fail to realize that black folks really weren't rallying behind both those leaders back then. At one point, Dr. King had like a 30% approval rate amongst black people. So my thing is that the best leader you can find is yourself. And you need to do something, and that helps me what I was going to say in closing, and certainly I'm going to turn it over to Chris. But what we ought to do after seeing this great and moving and enlightening and motivating film is we ought to say we're going to do something for black people within the next 48, 72 hours. Something. Whether it's send some money to the NAACP, send some money to the MOVE organization, join some black organization, but do one thing that you can say, this film motivated me to do something. I wish as a result of this film, we can come together, have a mass move for reparations on Tuesday, the hell with Columbus Day, and just keep things moving. But that's not really going to happen. So you got to crawl before you walk. So the first step in crawling is find out something you support. A black organization, the NAACP, the Urban League, United Negro College Fund, the MOVE organization, the Nation of Islam, some black organization, and donate to that. And then we can deal with reparations on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Chris, I'll give you last, but we have one last question. I will do my part. I want to see the table clear. I don't want Chris to go home with any DVDs back to North Carolina. But you have one last question?
I do. All right. First of all, I want to applaud you for following your passion and giving us the opportunity to reap the benefits of that. I have two real quick questions. One, I want to know what was the hardest part of this project for you, and I'll let you define what hard is. And the second question is, can you elaborate a little bit more about that mortgage scam that they were running? It lost me a little bit about what they were actually doing in that mortgage scam.
I would say the I would say the hardest part of the project was, I guess, just the money aspect. You know, like I told you, I had got laid off from a job, so I was just using whatever savings I had, you know, begging and borrowing, you know, for camera people just to donate their time and, you know, and energy to the project, and getting people to fall in line with that. I think that was actually the hardest part, and, you know, moving back to Laurinburg and giving up my apartment and giving up a lot of material things to put all of that, you know, into the project. I think that was the hardest thing. And also, I think the second hardest thing was, you know, hearing those personal, intimate stories, you know, from Dr. Manley and Faye Chaplin, of some of the stuff you didn't even see in the film about, you know, Dr. Manley talking about how his grandparents met, and, you know, how he would teach Sunday school, you know, on Sundays at the church in Wilmington, and just those personal, intimate stories that you really, you know, you can't find nowhere, but, you know, until you just sit down with a person and just hear those stories that was passed down. I think those were the hardest things about it. And knowing that his family is owed, you know, reparations, and, you know, even though I'm putting out the film, you know, it's like I feel like it's still, you know, still not good enough, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of always keeps me motivated more to hopefully, you know, one day that'll happen for him. You know, I think those are the two hardest things. The mortgage stuff, man, he's like constantly researching that stuff. He's going to be in the follow-up because he actually found the stolen deed book that was in the records. And see, the state of North Carolina have been looking for this book for a long time, and it was in the dude's records the whole time. So it's crazy, man. Just a lot of the stuff. And like I said, the state of North Carolina, the archives has been looking for it. The Register of Deeds in New Hanover County and Wilmington, they've been looking for it. So we got a lot to talk about with that. But that's his expertise, you know what I'm saying? I'm just a guy that kind of just double backs and checks on it to make sure it's, you know, accurate and all that stuff. But it's way more to that. And he's going to actually, you know, just articulate it even more, you know, and make you understand, you know, what actually happened, you know, especially with McCoy. And we also found a descendant of McCoy, the guy he's talking about, and she wants to come forward and talk about, you know, her great-grandfather's involvement. So she's going to be in part two. So we're going to get more of the white side of this, of the white folks who benefited, and talking about, you know, coming to terms with their family history. And a lot of them didn't know until later on down the road, you know, because just like all of us, man, you know, we love our grandfather or our great-grandfather. We don't know what he's done. You know, we didn't know what he did 50 years ago. You know, we just look at him as our granddad, you know. So once they find out, a lot of them are ashamed and embarrassed and really want to, you know, let the public know that they want to do something to try to change it, you know, as much as they can.
Well, we can go.
Okay.
Well, James, where are we in terms of time? Let's do two more.
Okay.
Two more. Okay. I got to turn.
I just wanted to know, are you soliciting a GoFundMe on your website?
You said funding?
Funding for the second? Are you soliciting a GoFundMe on your website?
Oh, nah, GoFundMe is, you can buy the DVD. That supports us. Serious. When people buy.
Serious? Are you soliciting any funding for your second documentary?
Oh, no. Well, my second documentary is already funded. I've had a couple of, yeah. I've had a couple of, you know, people who, you know, they're actually supporting the project and like what I'm doing and want me to continue it. So Wilmington on Fire, the follow-up is already taken care of. But I have other projects I'm working on. One is a martial arts project. It's about this dude named Vic Moore. He actually lives in North Carolina. He's one of the first black karate champions in the United States. He was a pioneer in the 60s. And it's pretty much, you know, not only, you know, talking about his legacy, but also the impact, you know, the cultural impact that martial arts has had on our community since the 1960s. Because he used to, like, train the Black Panthers in Cincinnati. He's done a lot. And also he's working with these younger guys now. He's actually doing some tremendous work with, like, a lot of black kids who are mentally challenged. And this one story, this one guy, man, he's totally changed his life, you know, with martial arts. He's like one of the top workers at his job now. He's winning karate tournaments. And it's just it's really special. It's one of those projects that I'm really, really, you know, happy that I'm a part of, and really, you know, giving him his flowers as well, you know, before he leaves this earth. So just, you know, buying the DVD and supporting it really helps a lot, you know, because we're able to shift those funds into these other projects.
What I'm concerned about is like young people watching this film. I've been to a number of films like Rosewood and Matt Turner, and the population has always been really small. So, and you have celebrities saying that they're tired of stories about slavery. How do you plan to reach that audience?
I don't know, you know, like Rosewood is really the film that inspired me to do this. You know, I was just fortunate enough to have a mom that always like pushed this type of stuff on us. And so, you know, watching, you know, Rosewood really inspired me to do Wilmington on Fire. And, you know, I'm a young guy. So it's a lot of, you know, younger folks out here who are, you know, trying to tell these stories, but they're doing it whether it's through music, through art. You know, I work with several talented artists as well who are trying to, you know, show our history and show our culture in a positive light, but to just do a different medium. So I think the younger generation, you know, is actually doing it. I just think, you know, they just need to just be supported and uplifted a little bit more. But, you know, we try to do what we can. You know, we're hitting up a lot of the colleges, youth groups, you know, especially in the Wilmington area. That's really our biggest area, is the Wilmington area mostly. So we do a lot of things, you know, in the community, in Wilmington with a lot of the youth and stuff like that. So we're going to continue to do that. You know, you can only do so much, you know what I'm saying? But I think if everybody, you know, at least does something, like if you know of a youth group that, you know, you want to get the DVD and show them, you know what I'm saying? I think, you know, we can all do a little something, you know, it doesn't have to be like grand scale. But I know one thing I want to mention is, you know, a good friend of mine, he's in the house, Coard Jones. He has a great film too. If you want to, I guess, expand your knowledge even more, you know what I'm saying, about black independence and what a black independent community would look like, definitely check out his project. Stand up, man. Go ahead. I think he got a screening tomorrow, actually. So go ahead and get your plug in. Right. Hey, Carl, say that again. All right, what time? Cool. And like I said, if we want these type of films out here and we want these stories told, we have to support it all. So if you guys have time tomorrow, definitely check out my man's thing. It's a great film. You know, support it. And he's a, you know, local filmmaker as well, local person, local activist, educator. You know, support.
And speaking of support, if you really, really, really are moved by this film, then show it by buying the DVD, show it by supporting him through GoFundMe. Otherwise, it means nothing.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And, you know, and Michael Coard, what's your Twitter and all that?
Michael Coard, MichaelCoard, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I don't do the young Snapchat stuff and all that.
I get in trouble, man.
Yes.
And yours, Chris?
Mine is just hit me up at WilmingtonOnFire.com. You can hit me up on Instagram at Speller Street, at Speller Street. Hit me up on Instagram at Speller Street Films, and Speller Street Films on Facebook as well. But any other time, just hit me up on WilmingtonOnFire.com as well. It has everything on it.
So I saw folks taking pictures, and you certainly take more pictures. Make sure everybody gets
Let's give Mike a big round of applause.
I just got back from Gastonia. Really? I was in Gastonia, Wilmington, Durham. A partner of mine just